Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on three. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret, and today I am talking to Mike Della Rocha. He is a visionary strategist, acclaimed artist, and compelling voice for change. He is the co-founder of Revolve Impact, a globally recognized creative agency that merges art, activism, and storytelling to drive social change, and Torpedo Coffee, a company dedicated to providing meaningful jobs for formerly incarcerated individuals through its partnership with one of my favorite organizations, Homeboy Industries, the largest gang intervention and rehabilitation organization in the world. His debut book, which we will be discussing today, is Sacred Lessons, Teaching My Father How to Love. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you so much for having me.
This book starts with you approaching writing a book. As you start thinking about your father, you write, I was running away from addressing my own issues because I was spending countless hours writing his story, not recognizing that his story was intimately connected to my own story. So tell us about coming to this book and how that revelation kind of was wrapped in the beginning of writing this book.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. The catalyst was unexpectedly losing my father. He went in for a back surgery. And, for all intents and purposes, we thought that he would be fine after this. He was in immense pain and he didn't survive. And that quote that you read from the book was, I was trying to maintain my father's legacy because he did so much for the community.
Right.
And so I was painfully listening to interviews and interviewing like his first roommate from college and everything else to get a sense of who he was outside of being a father. And I wanted to write his book because he always wanted to write a book. But that's when I realized that I hadn't processed the grief of losing the most important man in my life. And I was hiding behind his voice. That's why I said I was hiding behind his voice and not realizing that I had inherited both consciously and unconsciously the same patterns that led to his premature death, and that I was emotionally silent and distant with my own family, my own wife. And so that's what led me down to the journey of writing Sacred Lessons.
We mostly talk to moms on this podcast, but I think there's so much about the mysteries of those of us who are married to men, like how they communicate with each other. And I just think all the time, I have 3 sisters. We're on the phone all the time, parsing every moment. And I watch my husband and his internal life, and it seems very mysterious to me. And sometimes, to be honest, it seems shallower to me than my own relationships. And I thought this book was extremely insightful and really useful for me, because for moms listening who are like, how is this book for me? It really informed me. My husband and I just went through a kind of personal tragedy, and watching the two of us deal with it very differently, this book really kind of had a lot of aha moments for me about how men process intimate relationships. I don't mean sexual relationships. I mean intimate relationships, connected relationships. So that's what our whole conversation will be about. But what were the revelations around your own relationship with your father and how you related to the world? How did that start as an idea for you?
It really started with trying to tease out and explore. Honestly, the most basic question I keep saying is, my father loved my brother and me more than life itself.
Right.
If you would have asked him, Maya, what was your greatest accomplishment? Without a hesitation, he would have said, my boys. But hearing the words, I love you, less than one handful I could remember. He wasn't a touchy-feely kind of guy.
Right.
Or person.
Right.
And it wasn't that I didn't know that he loved me. It was just that the vocabulary to express the emotion was difficult for him. And the more I unpacked it, I started to realize and learn that my own grandfather never said the words, I love you to him. So therefore, it wasn't something that was customary to him. Later on in life, though, when we had our kids and he had his grandchildren, he was everything my brother and I wanted. And I always joke around, being in our 30s, watching him play with our sons, it was everything we wanted in that moment. Even as a 30-year-old, he was emotionally expressive. He was loving. He was kissing them. And it was socially acceptable for grandfathers or grandparents to be like that with their grandchildren.
Right.
And that showed me that the capacity was always in there, but the societal constructs or just this weight of what a real man is prevented him from doing that with his own sons. And so I started to unpack that, and I realized that I was probably right now, to be honest, overcompensating with my own son. I tell him every day, I love you. I love you. Hey, you're everything to me. I say, come here, give me a kiss. And he's 12. No. But, it's like the pendulum, right? Swinging.
Yep.
And not the biggest, but what I see so harmful for families is the inability for men to be expressive or to share any kind of feeling. That myth, that lie is really what's leading to a lot of us being unwell and suffering in silence, because we think that it's only us when in fact it's all of us. And that's been the biggest revelation, is realizing that I'm no different than my father. My father's no different than my grandfather. We're all in this kind of mutual thirst for love. And we can't say it, we
but
can't
somehow
say that.
a wall behind a wall that's protecting us or defending us from it somehow.
Yep.
I'm going to quote you to yourself. You say about your father, a man who taught, mentored, and transformed the lives of tens of thousands of students as a beloved community college professor for over 40 years. A man who played an absolutely critical role in massive social movements of the 1960s and 70s. A man who, if you asked him what his greatest accomplishment in life was, would immediately respond to you saying that being a loving and present father to his two boys was his greatest legacy. I guess that's the oxymoron of my story. Despite knowing that my father loved me and my brother more than life itself, I'm still trying to understand and accept why my papa had such a hard time telling me those three insignificant yet massively significant words, I love you. And that, I think, is so beautifully rendered. And it's familiar to a lot of us. I mean, I come from a very Irish family, which has a strong sense of patriarchy. My father always tells a story that when his father learned he was going to wear a wedding ring after marrying my mother, that his father said, well, you might as well just get a ring in your nose and let your wife lead you around by it. The idea that a man would wear a symbol of devotion to a woman was, I mean, my fire chief Irish grandfather was like, I don't think so. And I also think generations before us, especially from immigrant families, had really difficult lives and maybe didn't almost have the luxury of softness sometimes. Do you think that played a role with your father and his grandfather? So talk about that a little bit.
Well, first off, no wonder I have such a connection, because I'm in love with the Irish, the Mexicans of Europe. So
exactly. There's so many. I mean, I read this book and I was like, I get it. Yes.
I will say exactly what you said is absolutely true. My grandfather immigrated to Mexico in the Bracero program, which was a U.S. sanctioned initiative where folks in Mexico, millions of people from Mexico, worked in the fields for slave labor in these barracks that were, my grandfather came to the U.S. in a cattle car and they sprayed him with DMT. He gets to Oxnard, the city I was born. They lock him up essentially in military barrack. He had to work before sun rose to after sunset, and he couldn't leave only for a few hours on a Sunday. And in those conditions, you had to be hardened to survive.
Right.
And so the thing I'm learning from all these intersecting stories is that all these multiple truths are existing at the same time. And that the more that I can understand the context of how and who my father and grandfather are, the more I can have a sense of compassion, because they did, at the end of the day, they did the best that they could with the circumstances. My father had a very complicated relationship with his grandfather because he didn't know him until he was 7 when he moved out to Boyle Heights. And here's a stranger for all intents and purposes. And then even coming to America, my grandfather's working multiple jobs, so he never saw him.
Right.
And my father, like me, are both mama's boys. And I know this is a mother podcast. We're mama's boy through and through. So if someone is hurting our moms, this tribalistic or innate nature comes out to protect our mom. And my dad did the same thing. And so seeing all that, but also what I do recognize is the later years of my father's life, seeing the reconciliation between my father and grandfather was like the blueprint for me to learn how to forgive.
Right.
Because they weren't talkers on the phone. They weren't talkers in general. Obviously, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
But when my dad would spend like 3 minutes on the phone, I mean, 3 minutes is nothing, but that 3 minutes meant the world, because knowing someone that didn't like to be on the phone, knowing that someone didn't like to talk to his dad, to ask my grandfather in Spanish, hey, how was your day? Or how you feeling? Was his way of saying, I may not have forgotten, but I have forgiven the mutuality of harm we might have caused each other. And then the context, obviously context, this is what your question's at. The context is like the driver. There's a larger system at play here that I believe was designed to separate father from son, emotion from child, all that kind of stuff. The system we live in right now doesn't really prioritize loving relationships. It really prioritizes productivity, competition at the fullest extent, even if that means not seeing your family or...
And it prioritizes a kind of manliness that is
harmful,
in conflict with loving your children.
Exactly.
And that there's a soft, it's like we were saying, when you have a hard life, you don't feel the access to that softness, but that it seems that we've divided the world into soft people and real men somehow, and that those two things are not the same. And that to sit down and play with a child and tell a child you love them, you're on kind of one side of that divide. And that seems like something that needs to be broken down.
Yeah. I mean, I've been touring this book since the end of May, and I found that the strongest, in quotes, men I've encountered are the ones that are able to express themselves, because the amount of courage it takes, especially in this society that doesn't necessarily affirm men that are able to express themselves. And that ability to do so, that courage, is to me the strongest form of strength. So I feel like we're living in this time where masculinity is in complete crisis.
I mean, the statistics show that. We've definitely discussed it. Yep.
Yeah. The levels of loneliness, depression, suicide are astronomical, because there's this myth or fantasy of what a real man's supposed to be and how you're supposed to act. And the truth is, it's unattainable in this current society. Every other Thursday, I have the privilege of co-facilitating a men's circle for men who lost their home in the Eaton fire in Altadena. And men are taught and conditioned that we're supposed to protect our families, provide our families. Our worth is defined by how much we produce, not how much we love. And so what happens if your house burns down? Your work you can't go to because it also burned down. These are the kind of questions, on top of like the disruption of AI and gender norms changing. Like, it's a really complicated time for men, but there's no sense of conversation or compassion. So therefore, men feel like we're suffering or dying alone, like no one else can relate to us. And that's, for me, been the biggest power of the tour, has been bringing together people, men, so they can see the reflection in each other, but also realize like, oh, I'm not alone. You're going through something that might not be exactly the same, but it's similar. And so this idea that I can't ask for help. Well, if I don't ask for help, then what's going to happen? Well, the same thing happened to Mike's dad. I'm not going to live long enough for my own children, because just literally the weight of stress, the weight of like the unexpressed emotion is what affects people's bodies. That's what led to my dad dying. Like, I feel ultimately a lot of different things, but the weight of patriarchy or the weight of unexpressed emotion and trauma literally crippled his body to the point where it broke down.
I'm talking to Mike de la Rocha, and he is the author of the book Sacred Lessons, Teaching My Father How to Love. And we'll be right back after this break.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
So talking about this idea, it's interesting because I teach in an arts facility and we always start with a circle and I facilitate, we call it a go round, like people go around the circle. And I was just saying the other day, I wish everybody had a go round in their life, a time where they could sit in a circle and say, I've had a terrible week. I'm struggling. Because I think especially, and I see it with my spouse a lot in hard times, you know, we'll be, okay, the window's going to take more than we have to repair it and blah, blah, blah. And then he always answers the phone. Oh, everything's great. Everything's doing great here. Yeah. And I understand that he maybe doesn't want to share with whoever the person who happens to be calling about all the struggles that are going on. But I do often say, like, is there somewhere you're putting that other than with me, you know? And I think that as a mom of 2 boys, I think about it all the time. How do we start to look at these patterns of men before us who lived with tremendous amounts of stress, who weren't able to express their connection to other people, and therefore weren't able to benefit from you can't get the benefits of connection if you won't admit that you are connected to people in the first place.
Correct.
And so what lessons do you draw in the book? Talk a little bit about the relationship between your grandfather and your father and the disconnect there and kind of what you learned about connection watching their relationship progress.
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned earlier, my father and my grandfather had a very complicated relationship. And I feel like the way I am raising my son, my father was very intentional about raising us differently than the way that my grandfather raised him.
Right.
And in the quote you read earlier about him being a present father, that speaks to the core of the relationship breakdown with him and his father.
Right.
We complicate so much about love. For example, this is, the subtitle, Teaching My Father How to Love. But love is really just presence. It's just being. It's just like showing up. For me, that's why I know my dad loved me, because his presence was consistent, was constant, my biggest cheerleader. May not have had the words to say, hey, Michael, I'm proud of you, but his being there, wherever there was. And that was a hole, I believe, in my father's heart, because all he ever wanted was his father to be present when he was a track star in high school or when he was graduating from college. Like these pivotal life moments, you look out in the stand and you see, it's kind of like a movie, and you see everybody cheering, but then you don't see the one man. And we need more spaces where men can process that with other men so that they can understand, well, yeah, you were scanning, you didn't see your dad, but that's because he was working to make sure you had a roof over your head. Or, hey, that was happening because he had to leave his own father to go work in the fields. Like without the ability to be in circle, like we were talking earlier, that circle gives us the context and the understanding to be like, oh, okay, let me look. Because me telling my dad that, it might not have worked. But another man talking about his relationship with his father, he might have saw the connection and the similarity and be like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And so that's the power, the magic, if you will, of circle and of ritual and of ceremony. It connects us to each other, into the land, into the cosmos in a very deep and profound way where these insights happen. The insights are just intuition. So when you're talking about when you start with the check-in in the circle, that's basically an activity, an exercise. Some folks would call it ritual, to ground us and remind us of our inherent connection to each other. And the most beautiful connections are those rooted in love, which is those rooted in presence. In that moment, you're present for each other. There are no phones in the way. There's no television in the way. It's literally just people seen. We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard, listened to. And so the building blocks, I believe, of this new kind of masculinity are literally what we're talking about right now.
And I like the way that I feel like we often speak on the podcast when dealing with difficult relatives or difficult situations. Operate from your place of maximum generosity, as long as you think the other person has basically good intentions. It doesn't work when the other person is taking advantage of you. But I feel like you come into this book with that mind space, that you give a tremendous amount of generosity to the people who you're writing about. And you say in the book, I've realized that I'm trying to break unhealthy patterns that have been passed down to me, passed down to all of us for generations. I'm still working to dismantle bad habits I've inherited, not just for my son and daughter, but also for my father and abuelo, who I learned these habits from in the first place. I've learned that the division within my family is a result of our unwillingness to listen, our inability to express what we truly feel, and ultimately, our inability to forgive and let go. In this passage, you're talking about a family conflict that comes up around your grandfather's funeral, which, let me tell you, as an Irish person, check, another one where I'm like, I don't think we've ever had a family. It's like, if you don't have somebody who's banned from your funeral in an Irish family, are you even an Irish family?
Yeah.
But this idea of, I think we come sometimes at conflict with so much armor on that, like our job is to protect ourselves and our own. Everybody's coming in with swords drawn.
Right.
And how do you start to work on the process of coming from that place of generosity? I think it's hardest with family because you got a lot of history. You've always seen me as, and you've always done this, and you've never done that. And so what did you learn in this book about trying to come from that generous place and seeing people's stories as part of their behavior?
Yeah, it's a great question. What I've learned is I have to consistently be doing this in practice because it's hard. And even the chapter you're referencing, even the paragraph you're referencing, took me years to get to that place. We started talking about Father Gregory Boyle, and this new book is really making me reflect on there are no good people or bad people. There's no right or wrong. There's unhealed people that are acting out in a harmful way to themselves and others. I think this biggest lesson I'm learning from this life journey right now is if I truly believe that I am connected to every person on this planet, then I have to find a way to call in rather than call out people. From a place of love, but also as my other mentor, Harry Belafonte, taught me, you always enter into a space with non-judgment. If you can come into a place and just suspend your first judgment is what he used to say. Then that allows a deeper sense of connection because the armor is off. You talk about coming into a funeral, coming into a space with your armor on. The armor is judgment. The armor is projection. It's all these things. It's a skill. It's a muscle that I got to keep doing because oftentimes if I'm feeling a particular way about a person, what is it within me that it's triggering? But also that person, it's the wound that's actually talking. And that's the thing that Homeboy is so great at is someone lashing out, you could rationalize it. But the heart is saying that that's a wounded child. Get to the root of why that person is acting that way. And the same way where I've come to understand the complicated, beautiful relationship between my father and my grandfather, I have to start to also feel that same kind of compassion for my aunt and uncle and those that may have severed relationships in the moment. But what was it? Because these are all wounds. And wounds aren't healed by judging more or running away from. Wounds are healed by presence again. And I'm not necessarily even there yet, honestly, right? There's a lot of work I still have to do with myself to let go of all the, well, you did this and you did that and I didn't get to do this and I didn't get to speak in my grandfather's funeral, all these, and you. But what am I actively doing to allow the fertile ground of forgiveness to take root? And that's only a question that each person can ask.
But I think it goes a lot to the parenting experience in general that we often talk about. Behavior from children is communication. And that we get in trouble when we're like, my kid is bad. My kid is misbehaving. My kid is broken. My kid is a nightmare. I mean, every parent has these feelings. They're very, very normal. But I think a lot of what is reflected in this book is behavior as communication as opposed to behavior as an attack against me. And that we often talk in dealing with our children, it's a practice to constantly get to that same place, which is
correct.
You came home, I'm tired, I've had a long day. I just bought you $250 worth of back to school clothes. And you came in and slammed the door and didn't like dinner and are a complete ingrate because I did something terribly wrong when I was raising you. And now I have a selfish, ungrateful brat of a child. Those kind of stories, we have to take some armor off and say,
correct.
Wait a minute. What is this behavior trying to communicate? And maybe it's not totally about me. Maybe it's about what's going on with the other person.
Yes.
And I think that's 90% of the work of being a parent.
Yeah. And then they also say communication, to your point, right? I don't know the exact stat, but it's like 90+% of communication is nonverbal.
Right.
And so the cues are there. Do we pick up on them or do we ignore them because we're tired?
Right.
Do we see the signs or we're just too busy making dinner or just going through our daily day that we're not picking up on the fact that, hey, my child's actually sitting there crying, whatever the child's doing, or slamming the door. Again, the behavior is a communication. So that slamming of the door, for me, I have to check myself because I'm far from good at this. But I'm oftentimes the behavior is what I'm getting mad at rather than what is the underlying reason why he slammed the door? Was it an unexpressed emotion? Was it something that I said? Was it something that's happening in his life because he's changing as a young boy? What is that? And that's where the presence and the pause comes in because we don't pause. The society is so quick. That's what I'm saying. The society, the structure is no, you need to address it now, immediately. If not, then you're not doing your job right as a parent. And it's no, you need space, both for me to calm down, my child to calm down, for both of us to process well, what was it? I'm sorry that I acted that way, but can we have a conversation, right? So a lot of it is, this conversation is really reminding me again, it really is about the pause, the breath, and the presence. And if you do those three things, the communication and the behavior will be healthier.
Absolutely. I think it's so crucial. We are talking about the book Sacred Lessons, Teaching My Father How to Love, and we will be right back.
My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
So this book, we talk to a lot of authors who have kind of what we call prescriptive books that are like, use the STAR method to get your kids sleeping and sleep and that, whatever that stands for. This book is very much not prescriptive. It's a memoir, basically, that explores this specific relationship with the men in your family. And let's talk about the chapter where you take your son to WrestleMania. And the kind of, I thought this was very evocative, what happens at the wrestling match.
Yeah. When I was my son's age, I was in love with WWE the same way he was. And so wrestling became almost our ability to connect and be with each other. And I saw that sacred time, really, because we're talking about presence. I knew like every day, and I would play plushies with him when he was young, and we would do like, he would have this whole world invented of these were the storylines and this was the music, and I would just play around with it. One, because I wanted to be with them, and two, I knew as you get older, those times get less and less. And so I wanted to kind of freeze time, if you will. But we went to WrestleMania in Los Angeles a few years ago, and it's this huge spectacle. It's
if
an
you've never been to a wrestling match, it's worth the trip, guys. It's incredible. It's like theater meets sports meets Vegas meets a rock concert. It's incredible.
All of it, which is why it's so globally huge and successful.
It hits all the buttons. Like whatever experience you're looking for, you'll find it at a wrestling match.
You'll find it at a wrestling match. On the outside, it's almost like the stereotypical definition of what a man should be, right?
Sure.
Like, just violent and brute force, and you win by beating the hell out of another person. And that's on the outside, right? And I was there, and one of my favorite wrestlers, Seth freaking Rollins, walks down this long path, pyrotechnics, and he's wearing a pink dominatrix outfit, And it's kind of like, yo, this would never happen, like in a male circle. Like you wouldn't see this, for example, in like MMA. No one's going to come out like,
no.
And they're all pink. But it was like the roar of the crowd, like, right? Long story short, my son's favorite wrestler was supposed to, for all intents and purposes, win the championship match. The storyline had been set. It was years in the making. The son of a beloved wrestling Hall of Famer. And bell rings and he loses. And I'm up in the air because I like the other one. Unbeknownst to me, I looked down and my son was crying. And he was crying because he was so invested in the story, in the person. And I was thinking about back to the pause. We're talking about the pause and the presence. I was thinking about, well, if that was my dad, he probably would have said, stop crying. This is fake, or stop crying. Nothing's wrong with you. You're not hurt. And I decided not to do that. I decided just to hold him and let him process, let him grieve. Because, that's why we even have these ducts called eyes. And we're supposed to cry because that releases the stress and anxiety and the tension. So I'm holding him, and I look over my shoulder and I see another man holding his son who was also crying. And in that moment, I realized, yes, we have a lot of work to do, but there's also a lot of unacknowledged work happening as well. And so we're talking about these statistics, and they are true. And the other truth that also exists is that there's a lot more men allowing their sons to cry and saying, I love you. There's a lot more men going to circle or therapy. There's a lot more men that are opening up to their friends, even if it's one friend, and saying, hey, I don't feel good. And those things we don't acknowledge enough, but we don't tell those stories. And that's when we don't tell those stories, that's what leads to men feeling more depressed or all alone. Because right now, stories are medicine. They always have been. They're the oldest technology. But there's only one narrative that's really driving conversation right now. And that's an oftentimes harmful narrative about men, or that's a narrative of like men are killing themselves, or men are hyper masculine, toxic masculinity, all these terms. But the truth is, we're all just as people trying to figure out right now how to be in this society that was rapidly changing. I keep getting, people love that chapter. And I say this, I say that at its best, the WWE was homoerotic. Because it's one of the only spaces where you have men beating the hell out of each other. They're naked for all intents and purposes too, right? They're just wearing like underwear.
Yeah. Or spandex. Yeah. I mean, tight, colorful outfits.
But at the end, they're allowed to embrace. And the crowd goes crazy. It's more nuanced. It's a more fuller version. And what I appreciate is that it's not in your face. We're not having this commentary. We're watching it. We're just seeing it. And even at the time, one of my son's favorite tag teams, I think they're called Pretty Deadly. It's like two gay men. They don't name it, but they're two gay men. And that's beautiful. And so he sees the spectrum. And yeah, this book is about fathers and sons, but ultimately it's about energy. It's about how all of us both have masculine and feminine energy. And gender, just like race, those are constructs. Those are things that are man-made. Pun intended, ancestrally, whether you're from Ireland or Mexico or wherever, people were just people. And we embraced this spectrum of fluidity and the spectrum of like who you were. And we didn't have all these labels that we have today. And so that's kind of the tension with the book is I'm dealing with the what is, not what was or what should be. And the what is we do have these constructs and we do have these systems. And how do we make sense of it? And how do we make room for a more fuller definition of identity and self?
And I love the idea of the sacred that permeates the book, and the idea that it connects to ritual, because I think for people who do feel disconnected, that I can think of men in my life who I won't name because possibly they don't want to be talked about on the podcast, who had a distant relationship with a parent, but that parent, they were the biggest, Baltimore Ravens fans in the world. And that was the time where they watched a sport together. They were allowed to high five each other and hug each other and touch each other only during this ritual space.
Right.
And I think that can be when I see sometimes dads or moms who are struggling with connection, that we often talk about secondary activity, even in difficult conversations with my teens. Right. I like to tell people secondary activity. So like maybe they're helping you make dinner. That's a great time to be talking, because you don't have to just sit across, make strong eye contact and say like, what's in the deepest part of your soul? Instead, you're having a conversation while you're doing dinner. And I think we don't recognize as much the role that ritual plays for us as humans. Like we really need times where we can be like, I never break a smile, I never yell, I'm very quiet and reserved. But on Sundays, I paint my face blue and yellow and I'm screaming for my team. And maybe for people who are struggling with those connections, starting to like, are you building Legos together? Are you playing a game together? Are you watching the Star Wars trilogy, all 9 of them, or, in order together? Like, is there a ritual that can help you find that connection with a person in your life who you're struggling to find connection with? And I feel like that really came up for me reading this book in terms of like the many rituals that you had with your family, that people who might have struggled to connect, you still had a lot of ritual that brought you all together.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. Ironically, the 2 books I started yesterday, one was Father Greg's book that I'm reading. The other one is a book called 21 Rituals to like heighten your intuition, something like that. But it's you do a ritual every day for 21 days because that's the least amount of time to change a behavior or re-trigger your neurons. And we have, in the West, forgotten the power of ritual. We've demonized ritual purposefully because I think this system only exists if there is separation.
Right.
This system only, it's grind culture. There's haves, there's have-nots. That only can exist if we see ourselves as separate from each other. And the purpose of ritual, whether it's a sporting event or whether it's a spiritual ritual, is to remind us of our essence and our connection to each other. And therefore, like you said, even if you're at a sporting event, your face is painted, and the guy next to you or the person next to you, face is painted, you're one person in that moment. Right. There is no separation. You are one. You are like, I will die for you.
We're on the same team.
And that's the power of ritual. We are all on the same team, literally.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be something crazy either, right? One of the biggest, most profound things, and I'm out in nature as we speak, is that ritual of just being out in the outdoors. It's free, it's accessible, it's scientifically proven to help regulate your own nervous system. When I'm healing with other men in the outdoors, it's the most profound experience because that is the purpose of the trees and the wind and the land itself. That's why they say, grounding's so powerful. You take off your shoes and socks and just stand on the grass or on the dirt. And maybe like, Mike, well, that's not gonna do anything. No, trust me, man, it will do something. And it may not be immediate, again, back to the pause, but it will help you heal. And again, if you feel too insecure to do it, that's why you do it in pairs or with a community of people. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So as we're closing, think of a woman who's listening to this, who's worried about her son, her husband. She wants to communicate something about what she learned today. I'm speaking in a gendered way because I just know from our polling that we are talking to mostly women. There are some men who listen. But first of all, you should read this book, gift this book to your spouse or the man in your life. It's extremely useful. It'll start wonderful conversations. But what do you want to say to that person listening about what they should take away from this conversation?
Well, maybe I could use myself as an example in what I'm trying to get better at, and I haven't figured it out. And when we were talking about earlier on, like I don't give step-by-step process to be a better man. I'm just using my own experience and my own falls and my own joys as a way to hope you can glean something from it. But I'm not starting. I've come to the conclusion, but it's hard to accept that my own son, I have to accept him for who he is, not who I want him to be, not I am, and I want him to be the mini-me version.
Yeah, always tricky. These kids are their own people. It's quite annoying. We're very annoyed by it.
And so, but the truth is my son loves video games. And when you were talking about the secondary activities, what wrestling was for him and I 3-4 years ago is not anymore because he doesn't even really watch it anymore. But what that is for him is gaming. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to not be so harsh on him on his video game playing and maybe find a way to play a video game with him. And in that bonding, start to uncover, learn more about like, what is he really into or what's he thinking about? And it's the shared experience that connects us so that we can have those deeper conversations. And so I have to practice what I preach in the sense of like, I got to go into it with no judgment, with a sense of curiosity and wonder, and genuinely want to do it. Because if I genuinely don't want to do it, he's going to pick up on it and be like, dude, what are you doing? Get out of here. And so my advice to myself is, Mike, find a way in. And the way in is whatever he is most passionate about. In this sense, it's video games. And have a conversation with them and say, hey, I want to learn more. Can we do something? And without any intent of finding anything else, just about sharing the time. And the time and the presence will allow the conversations to unfold.
I love that idea. I think putting the bond as the most important thing, and then you figure out what's in the way and how we can get closer to the bond. We have been talking about the book Sacred Lessons, Teaching My Father How to Love. Mike, tell our audience where they can find more of your work, and we will link to our bookshop and everywhere else you can buy the book.
Sacredlessons.com is where it has upcoming events and different things around the book. And then you can follow me online at Mr. Mike Della Rocha, MrMikeDellaRocha on Instagram or Facebook, TikTok, whatever you use. And yeah, I look forward to just building and learning from as many people. I love these conversations because it helps me better understand where I'm at in my own journey. And I had a revelation even right now just about conversation I have to have with my own partner around some of these issues. And so I thank you. And I will end with this. In the West, we think that we're taught that healing is a solo journey. We're taught that it's a solo adventure. That's why we have all these self-help books and self-help that and this. And healing only happens in community. And this conversation is proof of that, because the revelations I had, Margaret, in the last hour, I only had because I'm in conversation with you. Therefore, my healing was predicated on me meeting you and having this conversation. And then the insight came like, oh, you know what? I need to have this convo because that'll help my relationship with my wife. That'll help my relationship with my son. And that healing, again, is only because we've been in community with each other for the past 60 minutes. And so I implore folks to find a person, multiple people, because not only will you yourself heal, but I believe that's the definition of collective care and collective healing.
This was an awesome, awesome conversation. Everyone look for the book. It will be linked in the show notes. And Mike, thank you so much for this conversation today, really.
Thank you, Margaret.